Good day, Sawatan National High School STEM students. Today, we will continue to discuss conic section, especially ellipse. But before we will start our discussion, shout out nga pala sa mga students kong magagaling, especially to the following students. First up, we have Bubab Bitonio for having the highest score in the written work. And to Janice Abasolo, we have also Ralph Lander Hamil and King David Gabutan for having the perfect score in the performance task. Keep up the good work, guys, at sana lahat kayo magkaka-perfect score in the next written works and performance task. Okay, so at the end of this presentation, you're expected to define the ellipse and you can graph the ellipse given in vertex form. Now, when we say ellipse, ellipse is a conic whose eccentricity is less than 1. So let's say we have two foci, we have f sub 1 and f sub 2. Now the distance from f sub 1 to point P over the distance from point P to point D is our eccentricity, which is less than 1. Now, how we are going to draw an ellipse? Now, let's say we have 2 points. We have 2 collinear points. And let's attach these 2 points using a string. Now, from this point which is black, let's make a curve, okay, moving around these 2 points. Okay, so something like this one. And as you can see here, we have blue dots. Now, if we are going to connect those blue dots, the figure, the closed figure being drawn is what we call as ellipse. Okay, now as you can see here, the string as we moved around the 2 foci, the length of the string does not change. That's one property of an ellipse. Now, let's have parts of the ellipse. So, as you can see here, we have 2 directrix. Okay, these are the line 1. This is the line 1 and our line 2. Okay, now the segment or the line AB is our major axis. So from A to B is our major axis. When we say major axis, this is the length, the longest length of the ellipse, which makes the curve symmetrical. Okay, and then we have also line IJ, which is our minor axis. Now, the f sub 1 and f sub 2 are our foci. Then point C is the center of the ellipse. The points A, B, I, and J are the vertices, or in some references, that's what we call as co-vertices. So we have point A, point B, point I, and point J. Now, the segment HG and DE are the latera recta. Then 2A, okay, is the length of the major axis. So in other words, from here, going here is 2A. And 2B is the length of the minor axis. That means from here, going here is 2B. In other words, from the center going to the end of the major axis is A. And from the center going to the end of the minor axis is our B. Now, let's have some properties of an ellipse. The first one, when we say ellipse, it is a closed curve and is symmetrical with respect to both its axes. Now, meaning that the major axis, okay, the longest line or the longest segment, okay, which makes the curve asymmetrical, okay, is a major axis, and then this line, this segment, okay, is our minor axis. But of course, when we fold the curve or the figure along with this axis, okay, the curve is also symmetrical. Okay, another, the distance from the center, okay, from the center going to the focus is AE. Okay, half of the major axis times the eccentricity. And the distance from the center going to the directrix is A over E. Then, the length of the latus rectum, let's say this one, okay, DE, okay, the length of the latus rectum is 2B squared over A. So these are the properties. Now, how we are going to write the equation of an ellipse? Let's say we have this horizontal ellipse. Horizontal meaning the major axis is a horizontal line. Okay, let's say this is our half of the major axis, and let's label it with A. Of course, the other line is still A because the length of the major axis is 2A. Then, this line is half of the minor axis, and let's label it with B. Again, this another line is still B. Now, as we can see here, from the focus going to the end point of the minor axis is still A. So, as we can see here, okay, yan ha. Okay, this axis, half of the major axis, okay, is the same with the segment from the focus going to the end point of our minor axis. Now, since this would be A, let's say that from the center going to the focus is letter C or length C. Okay, and of course the other half still C. Now, from this we can form a right triangle. Okay, the right triangle with the A as our hypotenuse and C and B are the legs. By this, we can create a relation saying A squared is equal to B squared plus C squared. That's from the Pythagorean theorem. And we can also have B squared is equal to C squared minus A squared. And we could also have C squared is equal to A squared minus B squared. I repeat that these relations is taken from this figure. Okay, taken from this figure. Now, let's say we have a point on the ellipse, and let's label that point with point P with a coordinate of x, y. Now, let's say that the center of the ellipse is the origin. And since we have letter C, the distance from the center going to the focus, then this point, let's say f sub 1, has the coordinates of C0. And the other one, let's say f2, is having a coordinates of negative C0. Now, if we are going to connect the foci to the point P, okay, and we have that one, we have to remember that the sum of these segments, the f sub 2p plus f sub 1p, is the same with this segment, and this segment is 2a. Okay, now we have to remember that f2p plus f1p is equal to 2a. Now, using distance formula, then we could have remember that the point f sub 2 has a coordinate of this one. So in other words, the distance from pf2 going to p1 can be expressed as the square root of, we have x plus c quantity squared, plus c in the sense that because we have negative c here, okay, plus we have the quantity y minus 0 quantity squared, plus the distance of f sub 1 going to p can be expressed as the square root of the squared quantity of x minus c plus the squared quantity of y minus 0, which is equal to 2a. Now, let's try to simplify the given equation. As we can see here, inside the radical sign, we have y minus 0, which can be also written as square root of the squared quantity of x plus c plus y squared plus the square root of the squared quantity of x minus c plus y squared equals 2a. Now, let's try to make or to transfer this term to the other side of the equation. So, we could have the square root of the squared quantity x minus c plus y squared equals 2a minus the square root of the squared quantity x plus c plus y squared. Now, to get rid of this radical sign, the square root, we are going to multiply both sides with the exponent 1/2. Not 1/2, wrong. It should be 2. We are going to multiply both sides with squared. So we are going to square both sides. Now, in other words, we could have here the squared quantity of x minus c plus y squared. Here, on the left side, we are going to square these polynomials. then we could have 2a squared, which equal to 4a squared, minus, okay, 2 times this quantity times this quantity, so which is equal to 4a square root of the squared quantity x plus c plus y plus the squared of this quantity, which is the squared quantity of x plus c plus y squared. Okay, take note that here we are going to square this polynomial. Okay, now we are going to let's try to cancel out those terms in the left side and the right side which are equal. In this case, we have y squared. So let's try to cancel out y squared. Okay, what remains is this one. Okay, now let's try to expand this term. So to expand that one, we have x squared minus 2cx plus c squared. That's equal to 4a squared minus 4a square root of the squared quantity x plus c squared plus y plus, let's expand this one. This is x squared plus 2cx plus c squared. Now in this case, as you can see here, in the left side and the right side, there is terms that are equal, so we can cancel it out. So c squared can be cancelled out. Then we also have the x squared. X squared can be cancelled out. Now, these 2cx in the right side can be transferred to the left side. So we can have negative 2cx, okay, minus 2cx is equal to 4a squared minus 4a square root of the squared quantity x plus c plus y. So y squared. I forgot to write the squared. Okay. Now, here, we can add these two terms. So that becomes negative 4cx is equal to 4a squared minus 4a square root of the squared quantity x plus c plus y squared. Now, as we can observe, in the left side and the right side equation, they have a common factor of 4. So we can reduce the equation, okay, by dividing both sides by 4. So that becomes negative cx equals a squared minus a square root of the squared quantity x plus c plus y squared. Now, let's try to transfer the term in the right side with the square root to the left side. And this term, let's transfer this one to the right side. So we have a square root of the squared quantity x plus c plus y squared equals a squared plus cx. Now, as we can see here, we have a radical symbol or a square root. So we can squared both sides. Okay, squared both sides. So here we could have a squared times, since this is a square root, then we can get rid of the square root symbol. So what remains is we have, let's erase the parentheses. Let's use bracket. Okay. We have the squared quantity of x plus c plus y squared equals, here we're going to square this one. So a squared raised to the power of 2, then we have a to the 4th power plus we are going to multiply this 2 by 2. So you have 2a squared cx plus, we are going to square this one. You have c squared x squared. Now, let's try to expand this one. Then we have a squared, okay, times the expanded form here. We have x squared plus 2cx plus y squared. That's equal to a to the 4th plus 2a squared cx plus c squared x squared. Okay, now we are going to distribute a squared inside on these terms. So you have a squared x squared plus a squared, that's 2a rather. That's 2a squared cx plus a squared y squared equals a to the 4th plus 2a squared cx plus c squared x squared. As we can see here, on the left side and the right side equation, there is a common term, and we can cancel out those common terms. So this 2a squared cx can be cancelled out. So cancel out. What remains is we have a squared x squared plus a squared y squared equals a to the 4th plus c squared x squared. I guess there is something missing here. So let's try to erase muna. Let's try to erase this one. This is wrong. There is something wrong na na-miss. Dito. May something wrong na na-miss. Okay. So to correct, here, as we can see here, okay, this is the squared quantity of x plus c squared. So in other words, we are going to expand this one. So to expand this one, we have a squared times, we have x squared plus 2cx plus c squared plus y squared. Kanina, we forgot, or I forgot to write the c squared. Okay. So here, dito, copy ang nasa taas. Okay. Then, we're going to distribute a squared inside the parentheses. So we have a squared x squared plus 2a squared cx plus a squared c squared plus a squared y squared equals a to the fourth plus 2a squared cx plus c squared x squared. Okay, now let's start to cancel out those terms na the same. In this case, this 2a squared cx, okay, can be cancelled out because on the right side, meron ding 2a squared cx. So ito, cancel out na to. Okay, cancel out na yan sila. Okay, so what remains is we have a squared x squared plus a squared c squared plus a squared y squared equals a to the fourth plus c squared x squared. Okay, as you can see here, dito sa kabila may x. So we are going to transfer this term to the other side, and then these terms again also will be transferred to the other side. So we have a squared x squared minus c squared x squared plus a squared y squared equals a to the fourth minus a squared c squared. Now, let's try to factor out. So, dito, sa left side, we can extract the x squared since both terms has a common factor of x squared. So, dito, you can have x squared times a squared minus c squared. Ito naman sa kabila, plus a squared y squared equals, dito we can factor out a, so a squared times a squared minus c squared. Now, we are going to divide both sides with this term. Okay, so divide both sides with a squared times the quantity of a squared minus c squared. Dito naman, c squared. Dito naman, we have the a squared times the quantity of a squared minus c squared. Okay, so dito, this would be divide out, and which is equal to 1. So 1 na lang yan dyan. 1. Dito naman, a squared can be divide out. So dito, we can divide it out. So dito, we can have y squared over the quantity of a squared minus c squared. Dito naman, we can divide this one out, this term. So makaka-divide natin yan. So what we have is x squared over a squared. Okay, now remember, kanina in the previous presentation, we have this kind of relationship that a squared is equal to b squared plus c squared, di ba? And we could have b squared is equal to c squared, or a squared rather, c squared minus a squared. So in other words, this, parang mali ata. Oops. No. So dito, okay, we could have a squared minus c squared kasi lipat siya sa kabila. Okay. So in other words, this denominator can be substituted by b squared. So you have x squared over a squared plus y squared over b squared equals 1. And this would be the standard form of the ellipse if the major axis would be along the x-axis. So, yan. Okay. So, in other words, these would be the equations. Okay, the standard equations of the ellipse. So, as we can see here, when the center is at the origin and then the major axis is horizontal, meaning along the x-axis, okay, then we have the equation x squared over a squared plus y squared over b squared equals 1. Okay, so we have to remember na pag ang major axis is horizontal, si a must be the denominator of x. Now, if the center is at the origin and then the major axis would be vertical, meaning patayo. Okay, then we have x squared over b squared plus y squared over a squared equals 1. Dito naman, as we can see here, the a squared would be the denominator of y squared. So, ang pagkakaiba ng dalawa, as we can see here, pag horizontal, si a squared magiging denominator ni x squared. Sa vertical, si a squared naman magiging denominator ni y squared. Now, if the center of the ellipse is not in the origin, let's say it has the coordinates of hk, and the major axis is horizontal, then we could have the standard equation of the ellipse would be the squared quantity of x minus h over a squared plus the squared quantity of y minus k over b squared equals 1. Then, again, if the center is not in the origin, it has the coordinates of hk, and the major axis is vertical, then we could have this standard equation. The squared quantity of x minus h over b squared plus the squared quantity of y minus k over a squared equals 1. So we have to remember these equations or this format. Now, let's have example. Okay, example number 1. Find the coordinates of the center, the vertex, the foci, and co-vertices. Okay, we have x squared over 16 plus y squared over 9 equals 1. Okay, now, as we can see here in the equation, okay, C16, of course, C16 is greater than 9. And then 16 is the denominator of x squared, meaning the ellipse has a horizontal major axis. So in other words, okay, we have a squared equals 16. And, of course, we have b squared equals 9. Now, getting the principal root of a, then our A would be 4, and our B would be 3. Okay, now, again, in the format of our, equation is the center is at the origin. So, alam na natin malalaman natin agad na the center of the ellipse is the origin. Therefore, meron siyang coordinates of 0, 0. Now, to get the focal point, or the length of the segment joining the center going to the focal point, remember kanina, we have this relationship. We have c squared is equal to a squared minus b squared. So substitute, then we have 16 minus 9 is equal to 6 squared. And then 16 minus 9 is equal to 7. In other words, if we get the principal root of c, then c has the length of square root of 7. Therefore, since the center is at the origin, then we have the vertex, let's say, not the vertex, but the focus, or the foci. Then, let's say, f sub 1 could have the vertex of square root of 7, 0, and the second focus, let's say f sub 2, would be negative square root of 7, 0. Then, our vertices, we have, since our A is equal to 4, then we could have, let's say, A. Point A would be the first vertex. Then we could have 4, 0. And let's say the second vertex is B. Then we have negative 4, 0. Now, let's find the co-vertices, which is our B. Let's say our J has the vertex of 0, 3, and our I has the vertex, or has the coordinates of 0, negative 3. Let's start to have the graph. So ito yung graph niya. As you can see here, the center is at the origin. And then, this would be the vertex. We have negative 4, 0. Then we also have 4, 0. And then, the focus would be, so square root of 7 is approximately 2.65, something like that, 2.65. So here, our first focus would be, nandito siya. And the second focus would be, kasi negative 7, so somewhere here. So that's the focus. And then the vertices, the co-vertices, and we have 0, 3 and 0, negative 3. In other words, tama yung mga points natin. Let's have second example. Find the coordinates of the center, vertices, foci, and co-vertices of the squared quantity x plus 5 over 4 plus the squared quantity of y minus 6 over 9 equals 1. So here, we can see na the vertex, the center is not at the origin. So in other words, our h here, we could say our h would be negative 5, and our k would be 6. Other words, the center of the ellipse has the coordinates of -5, 6. Okay, now, as we can see here, na 9 is greater than 4. And 9 is the denominator of y squared. Kapag i-expand natin to, we have y squared. So in other words, yung ellipse natin ay vertical, meaning patayo. Okay, so our a here, a squared rather, is 9. And our b squared is equal to 4. So extract the principal root, then we have a equals 3. And our b equals 2. So, the vertex, okay, kasi patayo siya. So, the vertex, let's say our a would have the coordinates of 0, 3, and b would be 0, -3. Okay, now, the foci, okay, katulad kanina, the foci, we have c squared is equal to a squared plus or minus b squared. So substitute, then we have 9 minus 4. 9 minus 4 is equal to 5. Extract the principal root, then we have c equals the square root of 5. So in other words, the foci, let's say f sub 1, would be, okay, ay, nagkamali po ako. Sorry po. Nagkamali po. Nakalimutan ko, hindi pala to sa center. So ito ay hindi 0, 3. Ito naman ay hindi 0, -3. So let me correct. So dito pala, okay, since the center is at -5, 6, so dapat our a would be -5. Pero, okay, we have 2. Okay, kasi our a would be 3. So, this center would be added by 3. So, 6 plus 3 equals 9. So, ito magiging 9. Dito naman, okay, for the second vertex, dapat -5 ito. Okay, just copy this one. And then, we have to subtract 3. Okay, subtract 3 here in 6. So 6 minus 3 equals 3. Now, for the focus 1, kasi vertical ellipse siya, then the focus would be -5. Then we have 6 plus square root of 5. And for the focus 2, that would be from the same lang kasi sila. Then we have here 6 minus square root of 5. Okay, now, the co-vertices, okay, for the co-vertices, kasi nasa on the left side. So, let's say our j would be, okay, dito naman, the -5 would be added by 2. So, -5 plus 2 equals -3. 6. Then our I must be, dito naman, mag-minus tayo ng 2. So we have negative 5 minus 2 equals negative 7, 6. So these would be our co-vertices. Now let's try to have the graph. So let's try to check. So here, the center is at negative 5, 6. So negative 5, 6. Ito yung center. So tama tayo kanina. Our major axis would be this one. Okay, kasi patayo. Then, it has a vertex of negative 5, 9. Negative 5, okay, tsaka 9. So nandito, tama siya. And then, our second vertex would be negative 5, 3. Okay, tama na naman siya. Okay, now our co-vertex or co-vertices, we have negative 3, negative 3, 6. Tama siya. Tapos ang isa, negative 7, 6. Tama siya. So, ayan. Then, our foci would be negative 5, 6 plus the square root of 5. That is approximately 8.24. Something ganun. So, here, 8.24. So, 8.24. So, somewhere here. And, our minor, not the minor, but the second foci, we have negative 5, then we have 6 minus square root of 5, which is roughly approximate to 3.76. So, parang ganun. So, 3.76. So, parang nandito siya. Somewhere here. Okay. So, that would be, so, be careful. Kailangan, we have to be careful. Especially when the center is not at the origin. So, just to recall, kasi kanina nagkamali ako. Nagkamali tayo kanina. Okay. Just to recall. Okay. So, we get the center. So, sa center, madali lang siya in the sense that we are going to get just this one. So, negative 5, positive 6. Now, our A is this one, and the B is this one. Okay, B squared rather, A in A squared. Now, para makuha natin si major axis, si vertex, kasi the major axis would be vertical. So, vertical siya. So, we just going to copy the x-coordinate of our center. And then, the y-coordinate of the center would be added by the A. So, kaya siya, meron siyang 6 plus 3 equals 9. Tapos, for the other vertex, okay, copy the coordinates of the x-coordinates of the center. And then, ito naman si 6 would be minus by the A, which is 3. Now, ano naman ang mangyayari if the major axis is not vertical but horizontal? So, pag horizontal, kabaliktaran yung mangyayari. We copy the y-coordinate. Okay? Copy the y-coordinate of the center. Si x-coordinate naman ang mag-a-add at saka isosubtrakan ng our A. Same with our co-vertices. Okay? So, yun yung ating dapat nating ma-remember. Okay. Now, let's have this one. Find the equation of an ellipse in standard form given the center h 5, 4 in the major axis is the horizontal and has the length of 16 units and the major axis is 10 units long. So, dito, klaro na it's not the center. However, our horizontal axis the major axis is horizontal, meaning the ellipse would be pahiga ang ellipse natin. Okay, now we can see here that our h would be 5 and our k is 4. Okay, now take note that the length of the horizontal axis is 16. Okay, so 2a siya. Okay, 2a is equal to 16. Therefore, our a would be 8. Then 2b is equal to 10. In other words, the b is equal to 5. So we can now substitute to our equation. Remember that the equation is the squared quantity of x minus h. Okay. Hindi yan b ha. It's h. So this is h squared over, since horizontal siya, pahiga siya, then this is be our a squared. Plus, we have squared quantity of y minus k over b squared equals 1. So, here, substitute, we have the squared quantity of x minus 5 over a, which is 8. So 8 squared plus the squared quantity of y minus 4 over 5 squared equals 1. Therefore, we have the final equation. The squared quantity of x minus 5 over 8 squared is 64. Plus, here, we have the squared quantity of y minus 4 over 25 equals 1. So this would be the equation, the standard equation. Okay. So, dito, we can see here, let's try to, dito. The center is at 5, 4. So, 5, 4. So, tama naman siya. And then, that is 16 units or 8 units from the center going to the vertex. So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So, tama siya. And then, again, this would be 8 units. Dito, 8 units. So, tama siya. Dito must be 5 units. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So, in other words, tama yung equation natin. Okay, now, let's have the general form of the equation of an ellipse. Okay, it has a general equation of ax squared plus by squared plus cx plus dy plus e equals 0, where the product of a and b must be greater than 0. That is, either or both a and b are positive or both negative. So, pwede negative ang a and b. Okay, but we have to see to it that the product of a and b must be greater than 0. Okay, so write 9x squared plus 4y squared minus 54x minus 16y plus 61 equals 0 in standard form. Now, for our solution, okay, ganito lang ang gagawin natin. First, let's group those, let's rewrite the left side of the equation na magkatabi yung the same or they have common variable. So, here, we have ax squared minus 54 x plus 4y squared minus 16y. Tsaka, itong constant term natin, ilipat natin siya sa right side. So, that equals negative 61. Now, i-group natin yung terms with common variables. And then, let's make those terms, okay, a perfect square trinomial by completing the square. So, dito, ang mangyayari, we have, okay, as we can see here, both the numerical coefficients of the variables with x, okay, they can be reduced by 9. So, factorable by 9 siya. So, we can rewrite this one as 9. Oops. So, the common, we have the common factor of 9. So, dito, mangyayari, we have x squared minus 54 divided by 9 is 6. So, we could have 6x. Dito naman, we can see here that the numerical coefficients are factorable by 4, or they have a common factor of 4. So, we can extract the common factor 4. Then we have y squared minus 4y. That's equal to negative 61. Now, let's make this one a perfect square trinomial by completing the square. Then, we have 9 times x squared minus 6x. Half of negative 6 is negative 3, and then negative 3 squared is 9. So, plus 9. Plus 4 times this, dito naman, we have y squared minus 4y. Okay. Oops. So, here, plus negative 4 divided by 2 is negative 2, and negative 2 squared is 4. So, dito naman 4 equals negative 61. So, remember kanina that whatever we write on the left side would be written also on the left side. So, dito, we have 9. However, this 9 can be, the 9 here should be multiplied by the 9 outside the parentheses. So, therefore, this is plus 81. At dito naman, the 4 must be multiplied with the 4 outside the parentheses. So, plus 16. Okay. So, here, we could have 9 times, okay, make this one a factored form. So, you have x minus 3 quantity squared plus 4 times the squared quantity of y minus 2 equals negative 61 plus 81 plus 16, 36. Okay, so divide both sides by 36. So here, this would be divided out, magiging na siyang 1. Now, 4 and 36 are reducible by 4. So, mangyayari, we have 36 divided by 4. So, this one, okay, magiging na, si 36, magiging na siyang 9. So, in other words, we we have the squared quantity of y minus 2 over 9. Here, dito naman, okay, 36 and 9 are both divisible by 4 or by 9 rather. So dito, magiging na siyang 4. So we have the squared quantity of x minus 3 over 4. In other words, this would be how we are going to transform from general to standard form of the ellipse. So in other words, here, may center siya na 3, 2. Okay. Now, let's determine the vertex. Let's say A. Okay. As we can see here, patayo siya because the 9 is the denominator of y squared. So therefore, vertical siya. So katulad ng ginawa natin kanina kanina we extract muna the A at saka ng B. So our A here, so si A natin is the square root of 9, which is 3. And B is the square root of 4, which is 2. So dito, let's just copy the coordinates of the x coordinates of the center. So we have 3. And then C2, okay, C y coordinates would be added by 3, which becomes 5. For the second vertex, dito naman, just copy the numerical or the x coordinate of the center, so which is 3, and then C2, okay, would be deducted by 3. So, magiging siyang negative 1. For our co-vertex naman, let's say we have J. So here, we are just going to copy the y coordinates of the center, which is 2. Okay, dito naman, C3 would be added by 2. So magiging siyang 5. Tapos si I, okay, copy the y coordinates of the center. So we have 2. Then C, coordinates ng coordinates ng x in the center would be subtracted by 2, which is equal to 1. Okay, so these are the parts of the ellipse. Okay, let's have another example. Write the 9x squared plus 4y squared minus 54x minus 16y plus 61 equals 0 in standard form. So, ang gagawin natin, okay, we are just going to group those variables with common terms with common variables, and then si constant term, let's move that one to the right side. So here, we could have 9x squared minus 54x plus 4y squared minus 16y equals negative 61. So dito, okay, this is one group and we have another group. So para nasagutan na natin siya, no? So let's move to another example. Let's say example number 5. Find the coordinates of the center, vertices, foci, and co-vertices of 16x squared plus 4y squared minus 32x minus 16y minus 32 equals 0. So again, it's better that we are going to transform this equation into standard form para ma-identify natin si center, si vertices, si foci, si co-vertices. Okay, so here, okay, let's group those terms with common variable and then move the constant term to the other side of the equation. So we have 16x squared minus 32x plus 4y squared minus 16y equals 32. Now, as we can see here, we can extract 16 here, diba? Because 32 is factorable by 16. So, we could write 16 outside the parentheses. Then you have x squared minus 2x. Kasi negative 32 can be expressed as 16 times negative 2. Plus, here, 4 can be placed outside parentheses kasi 4 and 16 are both factorable, or both has the common factor 4. So, 4 y squared minus 4y, that's equals 32. Now, let's complete the parentheses. We are going to make this one into perfect square trinomial. Okay, so by completing the square, so 16 times x squared minus 2x, half of negative 2 is 1, negative 1. Negative 1 times negative 1 is positive 1. Plus 4 times y squared minus 4y. Half of negative 4 is negative 2. Negative 2 squared is 4. So, plus 4 equals 32. Now, dito naman, ang mangyayari, we are going to multiply the constant dito by 16 and then here by 4. So, that becomes plus 16 plus 16. Kasi 4 times 4 is 16. 1 times 16 equals 16. So here we have 16 times the squared quantity, kasi we can express this one into factored form, x minus 1 plus 4. Dito naman, express this one into a factored form, then we have the squared quantity of y minus 2 equals 32 plus 16 plus 16 equals 64. Okay, 64. So divide both sides by 64. So dito, we can divide this one out. That becomes 1. Okay, 4 and 64 are both divisible by 4. So in other words, we could have the squared quantity of y minus 2 over 16. Kasi 64 divided by 4 is 16, diba? Okay. Then here naman, okay, 16 and 64 are both divisible by 16. Magiging siyang 4 dito. So, in other words, we have the squared quantity of x minus 1 over 4. This would be the standard equation. Okay. Now, to identify the center, okay, dito lang yan natin kukunin yung center. So, the center would be, we have 1, 2. Now, as we can see here, okay, the major axis would be vertical. Kasi, si 16, by the way, this is plus. I forgot to write the plus sign. Okay, si 16, okay, is the denominator of y. Therefore, our a would be 4, the square root of 16. And then our b is the principal root of 4, which is 2. Now, since patayo siya, madalaman natin kung vertical ba siya because the larger number would be under the y squared. Pag si larger number is under the x squared, then it would be horizontal. Okay, now, here, our a would be, copy natin tong x coordinates ng center, and then si y coordinate would be added by 4. So 6 kasi 2 plus 4 equals 6. And then our B would be copy the x coordinates of the center minus natin C 2 by 4. That becomes negative 2. Okay. Now, the foci would be using the concept of c squared equals a squared minus b squared. So dito, we could have 16 minus 4, which is equal to 12. Now, that becomes the c is the principal root of 12, which is equal to the square root of 4 times 3, which is 2 square root of 3. So, for the foci, kasi patayo siya, we are just going to copy the x coordinates of the center. Say f sub 1 would be 1. And then we are going to add 2 square root of 3 to our y coordinates of the center. So 2 plus 2 square root of 3. Dito naman, f sub 2 would be 1, magiging minus siya. 2 minus 2 square root of 3. Then, for our co-vertices, let's say j, okay, we are just going to, bakit may equal sign? Dapat walang equal sign yan. So, we are just going to copy the y coordinates. So, 2. Tapos, we are going to add the x coordinate of the center by 2. So, that becomes 1 plus 2 here, b, is 3. And for our I, okay, just copy the y coordinates of the center and then subtract 1, the y coordinate, the x coordinate of the center by our b. So 1 minus 2 equals negative 1. And these would be the answers. We have the center of 1, 2, our vertices 1, 6, 1, negative 2. The foci would be 1, 2 plus square root of 3, and 1, 2 minus 2 square root of 3. And then we have also our co-vertices 3, 2, and negative 1, 2. Okay, let's have example number 6. Sketch the graph of the equation x squared over 16 plus y squared over 9 equals 1. So dito, we can have that the center is at the origin. So dito, C, the center would be at the origin. Now, we can say na this is horizontal because 16, yung pinakamalaki between the denominators, is under x squared. So in other words, our A would be square root of 16 is 4, or the positive square root, or the principal root. Then our B would be principal root of 9, which is 3. So, yan na. We have now our A and our B. Therefore, remember na the horizontal, the major axis is 2A. Diba kanina? We have discussed that one. So, in other words, 2A is equal to 2 times 4, which is 8. Therefore, dito, this is 4, dito, tsaka dito. Okay, in other words, we can have our A as 4, 0, and our B is negative 4, 0. Now, for the minor axis, kasi B is equal to 3. So, nandito siya. And then, dito din siya. In other words, we could have our j as 0, 3, and our I would be 0, negative 3. So, we can now compute our focus. Okay, for the focus, okay, si focus natin would be c squared equals a squared minus b squared, which is equal to, substitute, 16 minus 9 equals 7. In other words, our c would be square root of 7. So, our foci would be, so somewhere here, diba, the foci, kasi the foci should be collinear with our major axis. Square root of 7 is approximately equal to 2.65. So in other words, the foci would be here, become 2.65, so somewhere here. And dito naman, that would be negative 2.65, so somewhere here. Okay, so in other words, our f sub 1 would be square root of 7, 0, and our f sub 2 would be negative 7, square root of 7, or 0. Okay, now, for the length of the latus rectum, we have the formula for the length of the latus rectum. We have, let's say, lateral recta or latus rectum is equal to, kanina, if you can still remember, we have 2b squared over a. Now, we have 2 times 9, okay, over 4. And this would be 2 over 4 can be reducible by half. So in other words, 9 over 2, or approximately equal to 4.5. And not approximately, that is exactly 4.5. So 4.5 divided by 2 is 2.25. So in other words, let's count 2 points here. 2 and 25, 1/4 somewhere here. So dito naman, that's 1, 2. So somewhere here. The same here. 1, 2, 25. 1, 2, 25. So we can now sketch the graph. So sketch. Para siyang ganito. Oops. It should pass to that point, to this point, to this point. Ganon. So let's sketch. Ang pangit-pangit ng graph ni Sir. Okay. So yan. So let's try to check. Ganyan yung nangyayari. So here, makikita natin, we have 3, tama. Tama ito. Tama ito. Tama din ito. Tsaka we have here 4. Tama ito. Tama, negative 4. Now let's have, dapat it pass through somewhere here. Dapat 1, 2 points. Tama siya. Nakikita natin tama siya. Approximately naman. So in other words, the sketch of the equation that we did is correct. Okay, let's have example number 7. Sketch the graph again. Here, we could say na our center is not in the origin. Therefore, the center of the ellipse would be 1, negative 2. Klaro. And then, dito naman, makikita natin that 9 is greater than 4. And 9 is under the y squared, the denominator. So, in other words, patayo ang ating graph. So, dito, the A would be 3. And our B is 2. Saan ba galing? A would be the principal root of 9, which is 3. And B, the principal root of 4, which is 2. So, alam na natin yan. Then we could have the, kasi patayo siya. So, in other words, our A, the vertex, would be, katulad ng ginawa natin kanina, we just copy the x-coordinate of the center. So, 1. And then, the y-coordinates of the center would be added by 3. So, negative 2 plus 3 equals 1. Then, B, okay, 1. And then, just copy the x-coordinates of the center. And then, we are going to subtract the y-coordinates by 3. So, negative 2 minus 3 equals negative 5. Okay. For our co-vertex, let's say our J, okay, we are just going to copy the y-coordinates of the center. So, we have negative 2. So, dito naman, the x-coordinate of the center would be added by the B, which is 2. So, 1 plus 2 equals 3. And for our I, so copy the y-coordinates of the center, that's negative 2. And then, this one would be subtracted by 2. So, 1 minus 2 is negative 1. Okay, let's have the length of latus rectum. So, the length of the latus rectum, as what we have shown kanina, that is 2b squared over a, which is equal to 2 times 4 over 3, which is equal to 8 over 3. And 8 over 3 is, this is approximately 2.67. Parang ganun. Okay, so let's plot. So here, the center would be 1, negative 2. So 1, negative 2 dito ang center. And then, the vertex, we have 1, 1. And they have 1, negative 5. And then, we have 3, negative 2. 3, negative 2. And negative 1, negative 2. So, yan. Now, let's get the focus. So, for the focus, F1, dito, kasi patayo siya, we are just going to copy the x coordinates of the center. 1. By the way, we are going to compute the C. So, the C squared is equal to A squared minus B squared, which is equal to, here, we have 9 minus 4 equals 5. Therefore, the C is square root of 5. So here, we are going to have negative 2 plus a square root of 5. And for the focus 2, we have 1 negative 2 minus square root of 5. Okay. So, for the focus 1, we have 1 negative 2 plus a square root of 5. That is approximately equal to 0.2 24. So parang dito lang siya. And on 1, -2 minus square root of 5 approximately equal to -4.24. Parang ganun. So, nandito siya. And since the length of the latus rectum is 8/3, then, okay, half of 8/3 is approximately equal to 1.33. So, here, somewhere 0.33 dito siya. Here, nandito siya, somewhere here. So, here, saka here. Sketch the graph. Pagpasensyahan na ang graph ni Sir. Sketch lang naman. Okay, parang ganun siya. So let's try to check. Okay, the center is this one. Ito ang center. Correct. Then we have 1, 1. And 1, -5. Then we have 3. We have 3, -2. Ito. Then we have -1, -2. So, pasok siya. And then, dapat passing through this point. Okay, so although the graph, the two graphs are very different, but on the left side, it's just a sketch. The right side would be the exact graph of the ellipse. Now, let's have the last example. Sketch the graph of the equation 25x squared plus 9y squared equals 2 to 5. Now, in this case, hindi pa siya naka-standard form. Let's make this one a standard form. To make it a standard form, then we have 25x squared plus 9y squared equals 2 to 5. Let's divide both sides by 2 to 5. Oops. 2 to 5. Kasi di ba dapat the right side would be equal to 1. Okay. Now, then the 2 to 5 can be reduced by 9. So, in other words, here, this would be reduced by 25. Kasi, 2 to 5 divided by 9 equals 25. And here naman, 2 to 5 divided by 25 is equal to 9. So in other words, then we have y squared over 25. And here we have x squared over 9. So in other words, the vertex, the center is at the origin. Then we have the patayo siya kasi 25 is greater than 9 and then 25 is under y squared. So it is a vertically, the major axis is vertical. Then we could have our A, okay, would be 0, 5. Bakit 0, 5? Because our A would be 5 and our B would be 3. And B equals 0, 5. Our J would be 3, 0. And our I would be -3, 0. For our foci, we could have c squared equals a squared minus b squared, which is equal to this is uh, 25 minus 9 equals 16. And the principal root of 16 is 4. Okay, therefore, the foci F1 would be, we have 0, 4, and would be 0, negative 4. Now, for the length of the latus rectum, then we have LR is equal to 2b squared over A, which is equal to 2 times 9 over 5, which is equal to 18 over 5. Okay, so let's plot. Center 0, 5. It must be negative 5. 0, negative 5. 3, 0. Negative 3. The focus would be negative 0, 4. And 0, negative 4. Okay, so since this is 18 over 5, half of this is approximately 1.8. So dito, almost 2 siya. So nandito siya. Nandito siya. Tapos dito naman siya. Here. Then we can now sketch the graph. Yan. It's time to check. So, yan. So, yes, it is in the origin. Tama. Then we have 0, 3, 0, negative 3, 0, 0, 5. Okay, kasi ito itong 6. And then this would be 0, 5. Kanita pala, 0, negative 5. And then, this would be this one. Dapat it passes through almost 2. Ito siya. Dito naman almost 2. Dito naman almost 2. Almost 2. In other words, our sketch is correct. Hopefully, you get something here. At salamat sa panunod. Good luck, guys.